So yeah, don't focus too much on the shiny people, focus more on the foundational.
Welcome to the Bible in 1 Year podcast, brought to you by two Brits in a Bible. If you like the idea of a casual yet meaningful chat about the Bible with a couple of mates, stay tuned in. Something in here could be useful for you.
Today is day 115, covering the 2 Kings 12, 13 and 14. If you want a brief overview of those chapters, they're in the description.
The floor is yours, sir.
The floor is mine by one verse. So in the 7th year of Jehu, Joash became king and he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother's name was Zibiah. She was from Beersheba. Don't know about the relevance of that last bit necessarily, didn't look into that. But I'm a numbers guy. 40 years is often in the Bible a time of probation. Obviously, Joash is one of the, Jehu is one of the kings that has like overthrown a lot of the temples and worship of Baal. And now it feels like Israel is back in a probationary period, so to speak, to see what they're going to do. Are they going to strengthen their relationship with the Lord or not?
Yeah.
And, the 7th year of Jehu as well, obviously the number 7, just have to throw that in there because it's everywhere, isn't it?
It is.
But yeah, it does feel quite probationary again at the moment in Israel, I feel.
Yeah, true. There's a lot of like weighing up how they're going to do, how they're going to swing it. I'm just trying to look up here. Jehu, when he was declared king, did it specify whether he did good or evil in the eyes of the Lord? Because it's mentioning here, like you've just said in 12, in the 7th year of Jehu, so-and-so became king, which means that, I've got lost.
Okay, I'm just looking up whether Jehu did well in the eyes of the Lord or not.
Oh no, it's because Joash did right what was in the eyes of the Lord, which means he was in Judah, which would have meant that Jehu was in Israel. And like it said at the beginning of the book, no good king from Israel, but Jehu did so much good.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think I was going to touch on some of this stuff later anyway, but it's this whole concept. Saka, I'm just going to jump straight ahead.
Go for
it. Flipping, I'm on one today, aren't I?
Jehoahaz?
Jehoahaz, yeah. Well, God saw how bitterly, in 14, verse 26 and 27, second, I'm just going to read it. The Lord saw how bitterly everyone in Israel, whether slave or free, was suffering. There was no one to help them. And since the Lord had not said he would blot out the name of Israel, he saved them by the hand of Jeroboam, son of Jehoash. And basically, Jeroboam did evil in the eyes of the Lord, but God still used him to do these good things. So even though people aren't necessarily godly people, God can still use them to do good things. Kind of sounds like Jehu as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's a very good point. I mean, if you think about it, even our best efforts are like filthy rags in the sight of God, right? So like even the best of us aren't exactly, great. Yeah. None of us are close to that. And for everything that they're trying to do, it still took 23 years. 23 years into Joash's 40-year reign. The temple still isn't repaired, right? So as much as there are some good things going on, there are still so many problems, deep problems here. And this is an issue with the priests as well. So Joash then says to them to not give any more money to the constituency and instead deliver it directly to the temple. And that's Joash trying then to fix the fact that the temples can't even be repaired because there's so much mismanagement of the money and probably corruption and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So again, that links that sort of probationary thing. Like they're still not there. They're still not there, but they are trying to some extent, at least here, I guess.
Yeah, very true. And then interestingly, once it starts going directly to the temple, it gets managed properly because there were no accounts kept for the workers because they all acted with complete honesty. That's 12:15.
Right.
It specifies in 13 and 14, the money gathered was not used for like the silver bowls, the articles and stuff like that. And basically it was like the money was to be used for the practical, not the pretty, like the necessities, not the niceties. It's like stuff that is being given, our tithes and things like that should be used to be put towards work of God rather than like, pastor's got himself a nice new watch. Like that,
There's a deeper thing there, I think, as well, which is that God isn't as interested at all in the shiny, right? So like bottom line, as Christian, you know, it's great for us to do certain more superficial Christian stuff, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but we have to get the foundations right first. We have to repair our spiritual temple, so to speak. That's part of why we're doing this, is to encourage people to read the word, because that is repairing your temple, so to speak, getting you closer to God, getting you to understand things better, that, you know, God's will and what's biblical. So yeah, don't focus too much on the shiny, people. Focus more on the foundation.
And that is good.
Yes, for a minute I thought you were just gonna be like, that's cool. Like, just fix it. Thank you, mate. I appreciate that. We haven't had a that's good for a couple episodes, actually, so that's good to know. And then, you know, the other thing is with Joash, bless him, is that his officials then conspire against him and assassinate him, right? And I thought that was interesting, because a lot of the time the best, you know, there's that saying, right, the good die young. I just feel like a lot of the time that is true. Like I'm reminded of one of my favorite apologists, Nabil Qureshi, wrote a fantastic book called Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus. If you never read it, I really recommend it. Died of cancer at 38. And many people would be like, that's rough. Like, he found Jesus in his mid-20s, I think, and by his mid-30s, he's dead. But just because you're doing God's work or trying doesn't guarantee you a long life. And often evil, the enemy, bad people going to bring you down. And that's why I'm still, you don't judge.
So we get onto a little section in here where we're talking about 2 Kings 13, 18 and 19. I realized actually I'm going to shut up because I missed something that you were going to say earlier. So you were going to chat a little bit.
Oh, sure. The only other thing I was going to say for 2 Kings 13 is Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, became the king over Israel. And this is just a small thing, but a cool thing. That's a fulfillment of the promise that God made to Jehu, that his line would rule for 4 generations.
Yeah.
So 4th generation of that.
No.
That's all I was going to say. And then, then I want to talk about Elisha a bit. That's all.
Yeah. All right. So I was just touching on in 13, there's this whole section where Elisha, who's now ill, is talking to the king, strike the ground with the arrows, and he struck it 3 times. Then the man of God was angry with him, saying, you should have struck it 5 or 6. You would have completely defeated Aram, completely destroyed them. Now you'll only defeat them 3 times. Then Elisha died and was buried. But it's this whole thing. I heard a sermon once saying that actually we should keep hitting the ground. We should keep doing more and more and more, because again, it's like asking for more than we would expect. That kind of thing. Like, God's so generous. It's not a bad thing to want that. But also, he only said to hit the ground. It doesn't say hit it multiple times. He only hit it 3 times. There's this kind of juxtaposition of, actually, that's really harsh. It said hit the ground, so he hit it 3 times. He's like, you should have hit it more. It's like, well, how am I? You can move the goalposts, mate.
That's maybe a heart posture thing, right? So for me, what I get out of that is that if you know that you've got something from God and that you know it's going to work, then don't stop doing that until you're maybe given a sign to stop.
Yeah.
So like, no, you know, but I agree, it's a little bit harsh for sure.
Yeah.
We've got to talk about Elisha. So obviously dead now, RIP. He dies from illness. We chatted about how he might have wanted 2 chariots to take him up to be with the Lord, since he gets a double portion. But then I just love the fact that there's this man's body that is thrown into Elisha's tomb, and as soon as he touches Elisha's dead body, he's resurrected again. But there are still the raiders, so they maybe are throwing stuff out. Maybe he dies again, he falls back on Elisha's resurrected again. I just freaking love that bit, man. And I just said Elisha actually is Chuck Norris. He's the Chuck Norris. Cool. Like, you know, unbelievable.
I like it. We've been chatting in our Sharpen the Sword series about who you'd want to play golf with. I'd quite like to play golf with this fella that died, got raised, Raiders, who knows what happened to him. It doesn't mention it, but not necessarily. So then it talks briefly about Jehoash did not put to death the children of the assassins of his dad, as was written in the law of Moses. Just another one of those it's not for us type moments. Actually, that was for a different generation. The Salt Valley, just the record, in 14:7 is actually located in northern Arabia, just south of the Dead Sea. And it mentions in 14 verse 25, Jonah. And that's the same Jonah we're going to come on to later in the book of Jonah. So yeah, interesting.
Love it.
Tomorrow's readings, 2 Kings 15, 16, 17. Pick up your Bible, get reading. Go on.
In the meantime, please consider joining us on social media at 2 Brits and a Bible and sharing this with someone to help spread the word of God.